When asked why heroic fantasy, David Gemmell said once that because we need more heroes in the world, and that's what he wants to write about. Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about the Drenai Saga by David Gemmell and why you should or potentially shouldn't read it, depending on your taste as well, because I always like to cover both sides. But doing a lot of time about this because I have finally finished the series. I have 5 of the books here that I have physically. I did audio for a lot of this series because I quite liked the narrator, which, might be something you consider as well here with it. But there's a lot to talk about here, and specifically with it being heroic fantasy, I think it's something that a lot of people would enjoy and would be looking for, and so let's kind of talk about it there. So that's the first thing that we'll talk about here is heroic fantasy, because it's not something that you see written as much anymore. It used to be more popular, and of course, David Gemmell was a big part of that. But a heroic fantasy where we're following heroes, and you see that a lot too with just classic fantasies. There's often a hero or like a chosen one. This is a little bit different though, because there's still dark things, there's still a lot of other things going on, but we're just we're focusing on heroes. And with Gemmell, there's kind of the focus on having some faith in humanity and the fact that there is hope. Good does exist to combat evil, and it's really important. Is good combating evil. And there's talk through several of these with like a code of protecting the weak from the evil strong, things like that. There's a lot of good here and hope, and you don't get that necessarily as much in today's day and age. And it's one of those things where for example, one of the most popular kind of subgenres, whether you consider it a genre or not, whatever styles, things you see a lot is grimdark. You hear a lot about it. It's very popular. It's made to be darker, grittier, in some cases more realistic. It's, subverting a lot of classic tropes and going in a completely different way. And then on the other end of that spectrum is you have a lot of people started to gravitate toward cozy, because you kind of have this divide. Some people really want cozy, the low or no stakes, the just comforting kind of thing, or people want like off the walls, super dark. And I think the thing is, there's a spot in the middle there, and there's a lot of stuff in the middle too. But I think the Drenai Saga by David Gemmell fits in there really well, because these are usually about battles and last stands and crazy fights against the odds, and you see deaths, you see violence, and you see a lot of evil in the world. But it's once against the core belief that good exists and good can triumph over evil. And even if, evil will always come back, that doesn't mean that there's no point in being good and trying to do good and that sort of thing. And you get a lot of that with Gemmell. I've commented very specifically that people who are fans of Joe Abercrombie, I definitely think should read this, because you can see in Abercrombie stuff a lot of inspiration from David Gemmell, but Gemmell having faith in humanity and going a very different route about telling the kinds of stories, but indeed too, you get a lot of non-standard, non-traditional types of heroes here. There's a lot of focus on like the legends, specifically with Druss, but you also get older people who are feeling like they're kind of useless. Maybe they're veterans and they just don't know their place, that sort of thing. You get a lot of those different types of characters. The Coward, Stephen Aria, is another one where you could definitely see a lot of Gemmell inspiration there as well. And that author's definitely talked about Gemmell a lot as well. But you can see a lot of these things with it, and it's not always your standard characters. And in fact, one of my favorites still, Quest for Lost Heroes, is following a kind of ragtag, not who you'd expect group of quote-unquote heroes who are joined by a young boy who has no experience, doesn't really know what he's doing, but they're trying to rescue someone, and he wants to rescue the woman he loves, even though she doesn't love him. And so it's kind of playing around the tropes of, rescuing the princess and the band of knights and heroes, and going a very different way about it, which is something that Gemmell does here a lot. And it's just the characters, the way that they're written are really fantastic, and it's characters that you can really root for as well. And so it is heroic fantasy, and it is, you know, a little bit more of an older style, which I think you'll see as well. But also something to note here is they're all pretty short books, 300 to 400 pages for most of these, which I know isn't the shortest, but is fairly short. And you get a lot of great characters, a lot of great plot as well. And things move very quickly. These are very easy to consume and to read. And so if you want something shorter, something that has great stakes and characters and action and plot and everything there as well, these are also a really good thing to check out for that. Now, one of the things that I will say that is, it can be a little bit more on the negative side, it might be something that some people don't like, is that you do, as I've sort of talked about here, you explore a lot of similar themes in these books. The Last Stand is a common thing that's looked at. Obviously, we're usually looking at a hero, a group of heroes, that sort of thing. There are some characters that have some similar attributes, some stories that have some similar things going on. But it's kind of, for me at least, it's how well it's written and how we're seeing different characters over time. There's always changes. It's never quite the same, but we're seeing these different times, these different characters, how they react to things, and it's just really well written. That for me, I don't really mind that there's some similarities in some of the books, and then some of them are totally different. Quest for Lost Heroes was pretty different. Winter Warriors was pretty different. This actually originally I think wasn't going to be a Drenai novel, but the publisher wanted it to be, so it became a Drenai novel. But there's another one that's pretty different as well. And so you really do still get some variety, even though there's a lot of similar themes that are being explored. But the other thing too is you, for the most part, can read these in any general order. Legend is the first one that's published. A lot of people start here. This is where I started. And I went from here and I started going in publication order, did King Beyond the Gate, Quest for Lost Heroes, and then I think Waylander, and it was just kind of going in that order. And then there is a chronological order that you can follow as well and go in there. But some people have really big opinions on, like, oh, you should definitely do chronological. I usually arbitrarily do publication orders. I don't have a super good reason. I started publication and then went to chronological once I realized I was going to read them all. And I don't really have a good answer. I have been asked which order you should read. And there are some you need to read in order because, like, before Waylander, there are 3 different stories that go into that one. There are some prequels to Legend, specifically about Dress, which I do think you should read after reading Legend, because it's reading them before I don't think would have the same result. And anyway, and then there are some of the last 2, which are about Skilgannon and Do Follow, which are White Wolf and Swords of Night and Day, are ones that I really do think you should probably read last, especially Swords of Night and Day, although that one is, I think, the last published and the last chronologically, so you're probably going to be reading that last no matter what, so probably be fine there, but that one really should be last. But otherwise, a lot of these, like I said, you can read in whatever order, and a lot of them stand alone pretty well. They do reference each other, so if you're reading them, you'll get references to characters. If you're reading one that's in a newer timeline, you'll get references to characters in an older timeline. Dress is around in a lot of them, but you'll also have mentions of Waylander and other people that you have books about as well. And so you do get a cohesive history. There is continuity between the books, but it's also, I mean, for me, like, I read Winter Warriors is much later, and then reading some of the much earlier ones, there are some parallels drawn there too, and so I feel like either order that you read them in, you can get a lot out of them. And if you don't want to necessarily read them all, you're not sure, you can start with Legend, you could read Winter Warriors, you could read Quest for Lost Heroes, you could read Waylander, and you're going to get a complete book in each one. There are none of these that you absolutely, like, you don't get a full story with. So even Waylander, there is part 2, and then there is a part 3. You probably could read part 2 and part 3 without having read either one before and still be okay. I mean, I don't know why you would do that, but they stand alone pretty well. There are 11 books total in Drenai, technically, although there are 2 that are kind of Drenai, which is Knights of Dark Renown, which I have, and Morningstar, which apparently happened hundreds of years before the events of the series at all, which itself spans quite a lot of time, and are technically in the world, but not also necessarily connected. And so that's kind of either way. I actually have not read those ones yet because I didn't realize they were in some ways included in the series, but also supposed to be perfect standalones. So fairly short books that stand alone pretty well. And are easy to get through. You don't get a ton. And so this is one of those things, too, that if you don't want to commit to a big series, you absolutely don't have to. You can kind of pick and choose these ones. And, if you read Legend and you really want to know more about Dress, then you can go back and read the first chronicles of Dress the Legend and the Legend of Deathwalker and find out more about Dress. If you want to try out a couple of different things, like I described Winter Warriors, Quest for Lost Heroes, you can do that. Waynelander is a kind of assassin type of character, and you can read that and explore. There's a lot of different options, and I don't think order is super important. And for me, that's a positive because you can read these in chronological order, and they will hold up with continuity and with different things like that. But you also don't necessarily have to, and you can still get it. So I read some that were in the future and referenced past books. I read some that were in the past, and you could see oh, this is going to turn there in the future book. And for me, I really enjoyed the interconnectivity a lot without having issues with reading them, out of order, so to speak. So. That's definitely something that I like to see. And so I've talked a bit about the order to go, and I think too another thing that I enjoyed about this book and that you don't necessarily always get is the exploration of the world over time and how events in these books end up impacting things or don't in some cases as well. And so it's something that's really interesting to see because of the fact that this is it is a series, and the books are all connected, but they're fairly loosely connected, like I said, in a lot of ways where they each stand alone. But so you get to see, okay, what's going on next. Now, some are closer than others, like King Beyond the Gate is the second published, and it follows fairly close to Legend and is specifically looking at things that happened in Legend. And like I said, there are 3 different books that involve Waynelander as well. So some of them are following, fairly closely, but then Winter Warriors is quite a bit in the far. The very last book is way down the line as well. And then, like the Waynelander books are quite early. So there's a lot of different parts here. And so you really get to explore and see things change. You'll see relics of specific import and kind of see where maybe they came from or when they were relevant. And over time, you'll hear different stories of these heroes and what's known or what's not known about them as well over time, and see those things kind of change. And so you really, it makes the world feel very alive and very rich because of the fact that you're exploring it over time and you're seeing the things that change and the things that don't. And I think the different time periods, to an extent, as things have changed, also keep it really interesting to see. So there's not a lot of series where you get to explore over time like that. And so that's something that I think also is a really positive and cool thing from this series. So then I do want to talk about the characters a little bit, because I haven't talked about the characters as much. But David Gemmell does have, I think as the series goes along, there's a bit more of a focus on this in a fantastic way. But he is so great at character moments. And especially he will do it with, main characters, of course, but then side characters as well. You'll get these little vignettes, these little just moments where you see a character and this powerful moment with them. It fills in some stuff with the world, with the plot sometimes, along with the characters. And you have some pretty different characters as well, too. And so they're heroic fantasy, they're fast-paced, with plot going on, but the characters are very important because the heroes are the heart of the story. And you have Druss, he sees the world in a very black and white way. He does what he thinks is right, and there's not really room for gray with him. And so that type of hero is definitely something that you might see, and it's talked about too. And you see through his interaction with other characters in books, either the prequel books or just other times that he appears or is talked about. You see a lot of differing interpretations. And then you have other characters like Waynelander, who's Waynelander the Slayer, and once again he's an assassin and a very, very different character. As not the typical hero at all. And even the way that book starts and things that are happening, you're getting a really wide variety of people in here as well. There are some just powerful moments, like I said, with both main characters and side characters, and especially as you see certain things kind of repeated as well, because there are certain themes. Like I said, you get Last Stands, you'll get references to the Armor of Bronze, to the 30, who are warrior priests, and you get to see how these things came about, changed, and were involved over time as well. And the characters as well. Like I said, you get to explore their impact, which is great, but also just some of the very, very strong moments and some of the strong characters like Dress and Waylander and Skilgannon and many, many more as well, including, like I said, sometimes it's just side characters getting a view of them, which is really just great. Some of the moments, Winter Warrior still stands with me out so much, is having some really great moments like that. First Chronicles of Dress had some great moments with just side characters where you really get a lot, but there's just so much here to love, to get through, and I had a fantastic time reading this series. And I read it over a couple of years because I really enjoyed all of these. There's none of these books that I did not like. Some of them I loved, some of them I just really, really liked. But I enjoyed all of these, but also because of the fact that they're nice and fairly standalone, even the ones that are very interconnected. You don't have to feel like you have to read them all at once either. You can just kind of throw it in every now and then, which is what I did. And another thing with the readability here that I really, really like. So that is I think that's everything that I wanted to talk about here. Talked about quite a lot, but a lot of reasons why I think Drenai is worth checking out here as well. Like I said, if you are someone who you think you'd be really bothered by having some repeated themes and feels to some of the stories, you might not enjoy those aspects, and that's something too that I think for me it's just normally I'd probably be in that camp as well, but I find I will note that the very first book, Legend, has some tropes, and although it is a phenomenal book, it is one of those things where, I had some complaints, but then as I got further into the world too, you really do see Gemmell grow as an author through this as well, and so it's one of those series where the quality stays great, and then there are some that just really stand out even more, but they also all build on each other as well, so it's just, no matter what order you read, they build on each other so well, and make it very, very readable. And Gemmell's an author too. I plan to continue reading his entire bibliography because I've had a great time with him as well. But this is yeah. If you like if you don't like fairly faster paced, action heavy, character focused, hero focused type of stuff, even then I'd recommend giving this a try because you all know me. I love my slow, complex, intricate types of things, and I still love this series. So it's one, like I said, I think that you could find a lot to love in. Not necessarily everybody's going to like this type of style. It does have sort of an 80s feel, that sort of thing, but it's really, they're fun books. They're great books. They have hope. They have faith in humanity, and I do feel like we could all use a little bit more of that, some more heroes in the world today as well. So that's it, though. Those are my thoughts on the Drenai Saga. Let me know yours. I know a lot of you have been are fans and have been watching as you go along. But if you're watching this and you haven't read and are interested, or either way, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Always love to hear from you. Make sure to give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Check the link in the description as always for the Wizardly Enclave Discord if you want to chat books, whether these books, other books, really anything at all. It's a lot of fun and we'd love to have you. And of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.